podcast. We've been getting wonderful viewership on unify.org, I'm hearing. So that's such a powerful, powerful movie. I'm rising up.
Yeah.
It's midnight. What the heck? How am I going to get to sleep?
I thought we'd be coming back on and we'd be.
I don't know if you guys felt it, but the film is actually embedded with sound and light frequencies. So every time you watch it, I'm actually usually in bed at this time. It's 11:11 actually on the East Coast, literally at this moment. And so it's past my bedtime, but I literally am energized. And every time I watch it, that's what happens. So I'm blessed. I have an incredible team that helped us create that.
So Jen, while we're waiting for other people to have the courage to ask questions, how did you select all of the different components for this? Because you really cover so much in this. How did you decide the sequence and who to include? Did you have to cut out a whole bunch of this?
Yeah. So I mentioned in the film that I always saw this as a trilogy. Because there's so much that I learned in the 8 years of healing from that experience. So it's now been 9 years since the bombings took place. And it took about 4 solid years for me to fully, come to the other side. And then I was just kind of getting my feet wet, getting back into life. So we actually have 70 hours of footage. The biggest challenge was condensing it to an hour and 37 minutes. And I know for those of you that watch the whole thing, but there was such powerful messages from each of the speakers. And this film was about laying a foundation. I didn't know at the time that when we decided to embark on this journey was in the beginning of COVID.
Right.
So I didn't realize how important that this film was going to be, and sharing the insights and wisdom that I learned. And I wanted to be able to share that with others. So it took a lot of work for us to synthesize it and pull in the pieces to tie back a storyline that could affect everyone.
Right.
Like everyone on the planet who is struggling with trauma or any sort of adversity could watch this film. We've actually had people contact us and said, "You've saved my life. I was on the verge of committing suicide."
Yeah.
I didn't know when we were making this film that it had that kind of impact. And I'm humbled. I'm actually humbled by that.
Well, it is an activation. There's no question about it, because I can feel it right now. And I've been blessed to get to see it a couple of times. So, and I mean, having Jack Canfield in it and Dr. Sue Morter and I mean, these healers. And then you were brave enough at the end to include Chandler's, which, I mean, up until then, it was pretty much maybe accepted the new mainstream, but on the way to the alternative healing part was still not generally understood. But then you went all the way. What made you include the channeling?
I really thought it was a pivotal and important moment in our history to start to open up to there is a whole nother dimension of reality that we all can tap into.
Yay.
And I will say, listen, I am the biggest skeptic. I thought when I first stumbled on channeling, I thought, what on earth is this? Right. And I wasn't raised that way. I was not, and so I had to actually challenge my own beliefs. But something felt different. So even though my mind was saying, this is absolutely crazy, this is far out, what the heck are you getting yourself into? I felt something in my body that is hard to articulate, but it was like pulling me forth and calling me in and getting me to go deeper. And And as I went deeper, I would transcend and I would literally experience bliss on a more regular basis. And that is the opportunity. We can delve into that at any moment in time. It's simply a choice.
That's so cool.
So I wanted to, now I will have, this is the beauty of being a director, because I had a lot of my team did not think it was wise to go there. And it was a risk, but the truth is it really paved the way, because the next film, which is called There Is More to Life, is a deeper dive into showing people how it is truly, truly possible to thrive. And I know a lot of people out in the world today, not everyone necessarily listening here with us in this moment, but so many people are like, thriving? How is that possible? We've spent the last 2.5 years dealing with a worldwide pandemic, right? We've had wars going on. We've had all of this turmoil, but it's simply a choice. We can choose to stay in that paradigm, which is a lower frequency and vibration, or we can choose to live into higher realms and dimensions. And it's a single choice. And the more I do it, and the more the people around me do it, then we collectively get to evolve.
Exactly.
And so I recognize, my whole life, all I ever wanted to do was make a difference. I didn't realize that every day that I sit in meditation and every day that I choose to live in an intention and come from a place of love, that I'm serving humanity and I'm serving our planet. I used to perceive that making a difference was, changing my outside world. It's like Gandhi said, we change from within. Exactly. And then everything around us starts to change and evolve. And I've noticed in these times such beauty. I've noticed more vibrancy out in nature when I go for walks. I've noticed the rainbows actually are brighter, right? We have more birds, they're singing. And so in the midst of transition and in the midst of hardship, there's also good. The question is, are we focused on it?
Perfect. Well, this was a perfect film to put with World Unity Week, The Road to Peace, because there's so many different nuggets that are in this film of how we can learn and model what the film shows to get to peace. The forgiveness part, I don't know if you want to talk some more about that, but that is huge, Jen. I mean, I'm glad my camera wasn't on, because I was crying again. I mean, it is huge.
Forgiving the unforgivable was the hardest thing I've done. Now you have to understand, I explained year one. So you have to know, before the bombings took place, I was a successful businesswoman, very outgoing, very well known in my community. And when that experience happened, I withdrew. I withdrew from my family. I withdrew from my friends. I withdrew from the world. I was afraid of my own shadow. And so year one was learning how to rise above my fear and terror of the outside world and feeling safe again. I've born and raised in the Boston area, went to, undergrad and grad school. I never thought that would happen. And yet it did. Yeah. Just like nobody thought 9/11 was going to happen, or Oklahoma City, or what happened in Robb Elementary School and Sandy Hook, and I can go on and on and on. Guys, we owe it to ourselves to stop hurting each other. Right. So anyways, the forgiveness part. Year two, I had such rage. Now, I will share a quick story, which is not in the film, but it's really powerful. And it got me to see that a terrorist lived inside of me, actually. I indicated I'm born and raised in the Boston area. we drive crazy. So if you ever driven in Boston, we drive crazy. We cut people off. It's what we do. We don't think anything of it. This one particular day, I was leaving a support group meeting in Boston in one of the local hospitals, and somebody cut me off. And I instantly went to road rage, something I had never done before. And I went and chased the car that cut me off. And I know it was, now I know it wasn't intentional. It just happened. And for the next, I don't know, 30, 60 seconds, I lost myself. I was screaming, cursing, beeping the horn, trying to get this person to stop. Fortunately, they made the light, and the light had turned red, and I stopped. And then I started to cry. Who is this person? This is not who I want to be. And that's when I realized that a terrorist lived inside of me, and I had to heal her. Now, here's the thing. I had silently been thinking about, what would I do if I ever came in front of them? How would I kill them with my bare hands? I had such hate for those two young men. And I thought that if their lives were taken, the world would be a safer place. But I was wrong. I was wrong. And I realized that had I acted on my rage in that moment, I was no different than those two young men. Fortunately, the light changed and I stopped before I did something, God knows what I would have done. So there was a moment of grace and a moment of awareness of like, whoa, I've got some work to do. So fast forward, I was divinely called to read Ivana Yansan's book, 21 Days to Forgiveness. And I opened that book and I'm like, I can't do this. I shut it down. And the book kept drawing me in. And I could get more upset. I'm like, how can I forgive something that has literally shattered my world? And the world as I knew it was gone. My successful career was gone. My successful business was gone. My relationships with some of my family and friends were gone. How do I forgive that? But the rage that kept coming up inside of me terrified me and scared me. And I just reluctantly, in the beginning, delve in. And it took several months for me to have enough courage to get to the point where I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to forgive. And that's what I did. I made a choice to forgive, not knowing truthfully what was going to be on the other side of that. It really was an experience. And as I indicated in the film, once I made the choice to forgive and I spoke it out loud in court, my whole world changed. The rage that I struggled with started to dissolve. My healing rose exponentially just by forgiving. It literally set me free. But it did something else that I never thought could happen. Was when I said those words and I meant them, compassion came in for the very, very first time. So the hatred I had toward those two young men turned into compassion and love. And then it got me curious, like, who does this? What happened to them? And here's what I learned. Those two young men, they were 19 and 25, if I remember correctly at the time. They grew up in a war-torn country where bombs were laid in their city and in their backyard. I didn't grow up like that. I can't imagine what that's like. Those two young men were acting out of their trauma, acting out their rage because nobody helped them. And so this is why I created the film, why we are on this journey, because the more that we can start to forgive one another, and we can start to focus on loving and embracing one another, even though we do stupid things. I do stupid things. We're human. But when we can extend grace to each other, when we can extend compassion to each other, when we can actually look each other in the eye and say, I love you, I forgive you, the world changes. And I personally believe that the more of us that can lean into that, despite our differences, despite our different opinions, which by the way makes us unique, the more that we can do that, I do believe we can rise up to a point where we don't have to do war anymore.
Yes. Yes. Go, Noelle. Yes.
I just want to jump in here, Jennifer. I just have to take a breath after all that. Excuse me.
Beautiful.
It's just, I just feel that transformation that you went through, and and you have the compassion. Dr. Marty, who's part of the World Unity Week, she always says, "Hurt people hurt people," and you're a healing people, and you're healing people. But I'm wondering, do you have any contact with any of the families or victims, other survivors? Have they had the benefit of learning from you and from your path towards healing?
Yes. So the answer is yes. When all of this took place, I became one of many people that are part of a global organization called Strength to Strength. And it's bringing people who have gone through terrorism around the world together to unite, to help each other and to support each other and to, heal and rise up from this journey together. So the answer is yes, there are people on this journey. And there are also some people that have yet get to the place that I've gotten to. And it is a journey, folks, right? It takes some time, and people have to do this on their own time, candidly. But the answer is yes.
I'd also like to say that I love how you so many different modalities, and it's like a smorgasbord that you went through. But something's going to resonate with some people, and other things are going to resonate with other people. That's why I feel it was really great that you brought in the channeling. Although the first time I saw this film, I was going like, what? But, I think that's wonderful you did that.
And it was part of my journey. And here's what you have to know. You have to understand that prior to the bombings taking place, my background is in finance and economics. I don't have a health degree. I don't have a medical degree. My idea of holistic wellness prior to the bombings was nutrition and chiropractor. I thought acupuncture was woo-woo, right? So the fact that I didn't even talk about it in the film, but I did, I worked with shamans. I worked with, I've just done some extraordinary things, but I never would have gone down that path if I hadn't been through the experience that I had. I was desperate. I was desperate for a better way. I was desperate to set myself free from that indelible prison sentence that I found myself in. And I was, for the first time, I think in my life, this lifetime, was so open, and I just surrendered to show me the way. And things fell into my path. And even when they fell in, I was like, you want me to do what? And actually, I did not want to do the marathon in 2017, but I had been praying, and I had been sitting in meditation for months going, what's it going to take for me to come full circle? And the answer was to run a marathon. I was a spectator the day of the marathon. I have never run a marathon prior to that. And I go, you want me to do what? You want me to run a marathon? I'm like, my idea of running was behind a white ball, a soccer ball, a softball, a volleyball, like short, small things.
Yeah.
And yet, and when I got the message, I could barely lift a 5-pound dumbbell, and I couldn't even walk a half a mile without completely being exhausted.
Well,
And I was, obviously when this came through, and I resisted it, and I was like, I'm not ready for that. And it kept saying, no, you need to do this. And this was in October 2016. And I said, okay, fine, I'll do it in 2018. And I heard, no, you're going to do it in 2017. And I knew, being an athlete, that a marathon, if you've never done a marathon, it usually takes you a year to be ready for that. And so, but God and the universe wanted me to do that 5.5 months later. And here's the other thing is, when I went to the bookstore and bought every book I could get on how to train for a marathon, I came home, I opened it up. That's not going to work. Next, I opened the next book. Shit, that's not going to work. None of the books worked. And now I'm crying. I'm sitting on my sofa crying. You want me to do what? And I don't even know where to begin. Then one of my survivor friends, Jean Campbell, contacted me and said, why don't you go reach out to Jack Foltz? Jack Foltz won the marathon in the early 70s. And he now was training other marathon runners. I'm like, does he know I'm not a runner? And she's like, I think he'll work with you. That man, grace him, he created a weekly plan. And he knew I couldn't run at that stage. He knew I couldn't get on, I just couldn't. So my training in the beginning was a little bit of biking on a stationary bike, a little bit of stuff on the treadmill, but I mean, we're talking little. And then he would measure, he would see my progression. And then I would have to submit this every day. And then the next week he'd create a new plan. He created a custom roadmap for 5.5 months, just so I could finish and cross that finish line. I want to share one other thing because it's really important. I had a lot of doubt. I wanted this to happen more than anything. I wanted to come full circle. And I knew the only way to do that was to cross that finish line. And I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know if my body was able to do it at that stage. And a week before the marathon, now they tell you when you are tapering down, so the intent is you've got to get to 20 miles. They say if you can get to 20 miles in your training, you statistically have a better chance of finishing the race. But you want to do the 20 miler like a month or a little bit prior to that, before the race. 1 week out, I hadn't gotten to the 20 miler yet. And I knew I had to do that. So I called out my soul sister, Carolyn, who graciously, ran with me that day, or jogged with me more like, said, let's go do it. So we went out, and it took a little over 10 hours to go 20 miles. And I was in excruciating pain when we finished. And I thought to myself, how on earth am I going to finish 26.2 a week from now? Then a day or two later, I get this phone call inviting me to a woman's speaking summit where Allison Levine was speaking. Allison Levine was the first female to lead a team of women to summit Mount Everest. Now, the woman that called me to invite me to hear her speak didn't know I have an obsession with Mount Everest. I've been fascinated with Mount Everest since I was a little girl. And I got an opportunity to meet Allison. And Allison was such an inspiration and such a pivotal moment, because she shared that the first attempt they had to turn around, and the criticism that she got, and you know, all of the flack that she got for not being able to summit. And it reminded me of how I felt the first time I attempted the marathon and I could only get 9 miles. And I said, what made you go back? And she said, it took a few years, but I just knew I had to go back to finish what I started.
Mm.
And then she said, you know, I also had to look at summiting differently. And in that moment, something shifted for me. So when I went back home, I knew how to visualize. I knew how to do all that stuff. And I was meditating and visualizing 26.2 miles, but I could never see myself getting there. But her insight and her wisdom that day got me to pivot. And all of a sudden, I had this awareness of, go see how many towns you have to run through. So I went and I looked at a map, and I realized that there's only 8 towns. So for the next week, I stopped focusing on 26.2 miles. And all I focused on was, I have 8 towns. It didn't matter. It didn't matter how many miles were in each town. The beauty is, the first town is only like a mile out. So I was like, yes, 1 down, 7 to go. And that's all I did. Do you know? I finished the marathon. So I told you, it took me over 10 hours to do 20 miles about a week before. That day, just by shifting my focus to 8 towns, and we stopped, and let's be clear, this was not a steady thing. Like, we stopped along the way. I actually got acupuncture treatment at mile 7. My acupuncturist came out and gave me treatment. We finished in 8 hours and 45 minutes.
Fantastic.
But what's the point? Sometimes life, we get really focused on one aspect. Mm-hmm. But when we can pause, take a step back, and shift our perspective. Mm-hmm. I told you, all I wanted to do was finish. I never in my wildest dreams could have conceived that I could go 26. By the way, it's not 26.2 miles. There's a mile leading up to the start line. So it's like 27.2 miles. But it only took 8 hours and 45 minutes because I shifted my focus.
Wow, that's a lesson. Another lesson.
Yeah.
Bob, did you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Jennifer, the movie and all the other activities you have planned, and the trilogy and all, is a opportunity for so many people to take that which they need to hear, what they need to see, and use that, whatever those bits and pieces are, all of it. Do you do any personal coaching, individual work with individuals, and life coaching or motivational speaking? What other opportunities do people have to learn from your experience?
Thank you for the question, Bob. So I used to do a lot of one-on-one coaching before this. Right now, my focus, so I do inspirational motivational speaking. I also like to do group-oriented work. So there are several things that we are really actively underway now. So we are literally editing the second film, which a lot of the footage came from the first film. So the second film is called There Is More to Life. And it's a deeper dive into how we can tap into, our true essence and really cultivate a life of our dreams if we choose. And so there's that. Right now, we've been getting a lot of requests for people wanting to have deeper interaction and deeper conversation around the first film. So we're actually going to launch a movie club. So think of the idea of a book club. We're actually going to start to launch a movie club. So that you'll learn about that if you go to the Rise and Thrive Tribe. I'm going the opposite way, this way. this is the community where you can just join now. We're just literally building this out. And for now, you can be inspired and go on this journey with us. We have some free resources there. We're building it out, but we're going to create a movie club where we're going to go deeper into the what if statements of the film and help people, tap back into there. And then we're going to do some more group work. And then the third film, we're actually working on creating a research healing study. We want to get more scientific data. Because so many people, and listen, I used to be this way. People are like, you went on this journey to learn how to heal naturally, and I can sit here before you today, and I learned how to heal 100% naturally. I didn't take pain medication. I didn't do any of the stuff that the traditional medicine wanted me to do. I found alternative ways to heal that. And people have said to me, if that stuff really worked, why isn't it mainstream? And I've asked myself that very question. And so now we really want to go out and spread the word and share in our communication and bring other healers and bring other modalities in so people can experience for themselves. So the third film is going to have a research study component where we pull in complete strangers who are struggling with post-traumatic stress, veterans with post-traumatic stress, and people that have been dealing with sexual trauma, but have a desire. They have to have a desire to want to rise up from those experiences. And as somebody who has risen up from PTSD myself, I know it's possible. And then we're going to bring in healers, and we're going to bring in, sound therapists, and we're going to take them through this study, and we're going to quantify and qualify the data, and we're going to film that and incorporate that into the third film. And the working title of the third film is called Can't Make This Shit Up. Because we can't. Like, there's just like, and that's it. And then, and again, to get people to think beyond their limiting mind of, folks, we do have cures for all the diseases out there today. We're led to believe that we don't, but the truth is we do.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for shining light on that. So I want to thank you for choosing to be a ripple of love and bliss and creating bliss formation. I wrote it down.
I love it.
I created a whole bliss vocabulary during the pandemic. It's like, and we'll post it. But here's the thing, if you choose to join the community, which is free to join, the very first thing we ask you to do is to do a love bomb. So can I actually do a love bomb with you, yes, Kathy?
Yes, but we need to, this will be the last thing. We're out of time. So.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
So we'll make it quick. So here's how the love bomb works, is you express to somebody authentically what you love and appreciate about them. Ideally, you do this randomly via text message, phone call, or a note. But what I'm going to say to you is, Kathy, what I love and appreciate about you is that you shine light on so many things in the world, and you have been like the wind beneath my wings to help me bring this film and the message out into the world. And you've stood by my side for the last 7 months. And I'm so grateful for our friendship and for who you are. And thank you for being such an amazing woman.
Wow. Thank you. I feel good now. Thank you.
That's the intent. The more we can spread love bombs, the more that we can rise above and experience peace and bliss in the world.
Well, Jennifer, I hope that everyone, and I'm love bombing you anyway, because that's just what I do. I don't have a name for it, but your example is going to help so many people. Just like me, you and I both came out of a corporate environment where we were type A's and, trying to change the world through the corporation. And we both have made this journey to finding a much more loving, peaceful, blissful way to co-create with people in the world. And I am so grateful to know you. I want to be like you when I grow up.
You already are. And Bob and Noelle, thank you. Thank you. We just met and I'm so excited to be on this journey with you as well.
Yes.
It's our
We're all
joy.
family here. Yep.
Thank you so much. It's been a blissful evening. Thank you, Jennifer. And we will be co-creating the future, I'm quite sure. Thank you, Kathy Mason, for the introduction. Thank you, everyone who watched. This has just been such a gift, and it's going to keep rippling out, I'm quite sure.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what you do next.
Yes.
Can't make
I'm
this shit
waiting.
up.
I can't make this shit up.